What's up, Tampa? It's Friday, August 15th, and you're listening to Tampa Talk. It's just me today, Dahlia, so we're keeping it simple and diving straight into the stories. So for this week in history, here's a piece of Tampa history you might not know about. Or maybe you've heard a little bit about it from an old timer if they were big into fishing. But I'm talking about the Tampa Tarpon Tournament, a fishing tradition that ran from 1934 all the way into the late 1980s. This wasn't just a weekend fishing trip. This was the sport fishing event of the summer. It was 2 months long and from June 1st to August 19th, and it all kicked off at the Tampa Yacht and Country Club. What was the whole idea? Well, it put Tampa Bay on the map as the tarpon capital of the world. And it worked. Anglers came from everywhere just to test their skills. The fish were massive, and we're talking 100 plus pound tarpons, and catching one meant patient persistence and some serious bragging rights. There was a leaderboard, cash prizes, shiny trophies, and if you won, your picture was splashed across the local paper. Back then, that was a big-time fame in the community. So one interesting detail is that a lot of the fish were weighed right there on the dock. If the tarpon was still alive after the fight, it would be released back into the bay. But for decades, many were brought in as proof, long before today's catch-and-release mindset took over. By the late 80s, though, things were changing. Conversation awareness was growing, and new regulations meant the old school format just didn't fit anymore. The tournament officially ended in 1988. But for over 50 years, this was a summer anchor for Tampa. Fishing families passed the tradition down like a prized lure. People would still tell stories about the one that got away, or landing a monster tarpon right down in the downtown waters. Getting into the news for this week, we start with some heartbreaking news out of South Florida, where the remains of 2 endangered Florida panther kittens, just 3.5 months old, were found Sunday in Collier County near Naples. Both were killed in vehicle strikes, and the leading cause of death for these rare cats is in fact vehicular. This brings the statewide death toll for Florida panthers to 12 so far this year, and almost all of those have been from cars. So Florida Fish and Wildlife is reminding drivers to drive slowly, and especially in designated panther zones, not just for the animals, but for people too. And we're hoping to keep panther deaths down from last year's 36. So next, a major blow for Floridians hoping to cut their power bills with solar. The federal government has removed a $156 million available grant meant to help lower income households install rooftop panels. More than 800 people had already applied, and at least a quarter had been approved. This is part of the national rollback of the Solar for All program. It also bumps up the expiration of the 30% solar tax credit to the end of this year. Florida is moving forward with its first black bear hunt in 10 years. So you might have heard us talk about this a couple months back. But despite loud opposition from environmental groups, the Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission voted unanimously Wednesday to approve a 23-day hunt in December. Supporters say overpopulation is causing problems in neighborhoods, but opponents argue one attack and some population growth doesn't justify this hunt. And fear would lead to trophy hunting. The last hunt in 2015 saw more than 300 bears killed in just 2 days, including both mothers and cubs in this campaign. Amalie Arena gets a new name change. So big change for Bulls fans. Amalie Arena is getting a new name. Vinik Sports Group announced a multi-year deal with Benchmark International, a global merger and acquisition firm. The arena will now be called Benchmark International Arena. New signage and rebranding will roll out in phases with everything in place for the 25-26 Lightning season. You can also expect new food and beverage options too. It's kind of crazy to not be called Amalie. And the last couple stories we want to share here today. So Tampa, Busch Gardens eatery was temporarily shut down last week after failing a health inspection. Dragonfire Grill was cited for multiple violations, including an employee stirring coleslaw with their gloved hands submerged 5 inches deep. Gloves or not, that's a no-go. And inspectors also found bare hand contact with ready-to-eat food, insects, and improperly stored raw chicken. So it doesn't look good for the Dragonfire Grill. And the last piece of news, I do wish John was here. We could have dove a little bit deeper, but the U.S. bicycle industry is pedaling through some steep tariff hills. Most bike parts are from China, Taiwan, Vietnam, and Cambodia, and are now facing a 30% import tax. The back and forth on the trade policy has companies scrambling. Imports from China are down 42% this year, but Cambodian imports are up 77% as brands try to dodge higher rates. And so what's going on this weekend? First up, Monster Jam 2025 roars into town August 15th through the 17th at the still named Amalie Arena. Shows are from 1 and 7 p.m. and tickets start at just $34. Next, Fit Fest Tampa Bay at the Florida State Fairgrounds on the 16th and 17th. Doors open at 7 a.m. and the action goes until 6 p.m. One-day passes are $27.50 and two-day passes are $40. If you're wondering what is Fit Fest, it is Florida's biggest sports festival and fitness expo, formerly the Tampa Bay Strength and Fitness Expo. Otherwise, we'll be out at Harvest Hope from 10 to 11:30 and over at the Ybor Street Community Garden from 8 to 10. So come say hey, lend a hand, or just check in on what's growing in the garden. And that's what we're talking about Tampa. Thanks for hanging out with me, and until next time, y'all be good.